Huh? Ah, gentlemen, before we start Hoi 4, I want to react to a video. Let's just do... Because I want to introduce something new to the channel. I want to always do little breaks between games, because otherwise my brain needs to resettle in the end, you know? And I want to just react to something, and I don't know what I'm going to react to. I know you guys are going to spam the living hell. React to this. I'm just going to do... How was England during the Viking invasion? Well, let's see what we find. I have no idea. The history of Viking England. 22 minutes. I'm going to watch that. And you can't stop me. No, Tommy, watch something else. Shut up and just enjoy. Hi, Dad. When are you coming home from your raid, monsieur? Thank you for the sub, man. Who the fuck is this guy? Let me just open Hoi 4 already, and then we're doing the achievement. I didn't prepare this video. I don't know what this is. I just want to watch this. Let's take a little look. Let's go. Watch history of Poland. There it starts. People already, watch this, Tommy. Watch. You know what you should watch? The TommyKay creator code for G Fuel. 10% off with the code TommyKay on gfuel.com. If you ever felt like supporting the channel and getting a nice product, G Fuel, TommyKay. Let's fucking react, boys. What we got? This is way too bright. Ugh. There we go.
The Vikings in England. We all know they arrived in their longships with their nice horned helmets, or maybe without the horned helmet. But what did the Vikings actually do?
Wait, they didn't have horned helmets?
What's the history of the Vikings in England? Before the Vikings arrived, England was home to a plethora of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms.
Like, just this picture makes me want to play CK, because I never really experienced or was interested in England, Great Britain, and CK2 and CK3. But I would like to at least once make the British Isles. There's an achievement for it, right? We could have like a stream where I try to get back into CK3 and I just try to become the King of England as a small nobody. Especially when the ruler designer came out. Like we make our own little city like Tommy Sunset or some shit. Somerset. I like Somerset. Somerset is a cool name. And we just make a British kingdom. Why not? Sounds interesting.
The population was largely Christian, having been converted some centuries before, and there were hardly any towns. Indeed, most people lived out on the countryside following an agricultural way of life. The first real Viking attack came in AD 793.
Whenever I watch videos like this, I would like to see sources. How do we know as the human race that the first one is there? Probably like old scrolls from monks and shit, but I would like to... I want them to say that, you know? I want them to say, according to old scrolls.
At Lindisfarne, where heathen men showed up, pillaged the monastery, took many of the monks prisoner, and drowned others in the sea.
And I always say this, imagine the Animus is real, and you can actually re-experience shit. Imagine you are, that must be so epic, you are the first Viking, the part of the first Viking group that ever left Norway, Denmark, whatever, took a fucking ship to the west, not knowing what's gonna happen, finding a land and pillaging it. What a monkey experience that has to be. The first to ever do that. Holy shit, I can't even go to the supermarket without getting social anxiety. This guy gets in a boat for fucking 1 week and does this shit, man.
Indeed, the Anglo-Saxon...
Turn it up? I can't turn this up. Turn yourself up.
Put in this year, fierce foreboding omens came over the land of the Northumbrians, and the wretched people shook. There
oh, actually a source. Oh, there's a source. There you go.
Fiery dragons were seen flying in the sky. These signs were followed by a great famine, and a little after those, that same year on the 6th Ides of January, the ravaging of wretched heathen men destroyed God's church at Lindisfarne.
That must have been a weird sight.
And in the following year, the Northumbrian twin monasteries at Monkwearmouth and Jarrow were pillaged, followed by other attacks on Sheppey, Canterbury, and London, as well as Winchester. Now, in the year AD 865, the nature of these attacks
no one was guarding England.
were carried out by Danish Vikings.
That's why more Vikings came, because it was so easy.
Landed in East Anglia under the flag of the Flying Raven. These were led by the legendary sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, Ivar the Boneless, Ubba the Frisian, Bagseg, Guthrum, and Halfdan of the Wide Embrace, to name a few. They put up a good fight, the Anglo-Saxons, against this new invasion, but ultimately they could do little to stop the Danes from taking their lands, and soon, one by one, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms fell. Only the southwestern kingdom of Wessex, soon to be ruled by Alfred the Great, was able to hold out against the Danish invaders.
Alfred from Vikings, he was actually a real guy. He is known in history for being the first king of England that told the monasteries to translate Bible texts not only into Latin but also into English to make religious texts more appealing, more open for peasants. That was very
crucial
clever.
battle against the great heathen
He also was
army
the first
at a
to
place
start
called
making
Ettington,
Viking defenses and
securing
shit,
the
right?
future of his own kingdom in doing so. After this, there was a treaty signed at a place called Wedmore, dividing the land in two, giving the Danes the north and the east of the country, while the Saxons would control the other half of Mercia and Wessex, which they still held out against the Danes. Now, the northern lands would become known as the Danelaw, and in the Danelaw, these warriors who would come would settle down as farmers. As the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle said in 876, Halfdan shared out the land of the Northumbrians, and they proceeded to plough and to support themselves. Now, Halfdan, of course, was giving his warriors their rewards for fighting for him, and it's in this that afterwards they sent for their wives and children back home in Denmark, and a whole influx of a new Norse community came to England, which would forever
So many
alter
people must
the
have lived in
DNA
Denmark, though.
and the cultural makeup of England. Now, this land,
I like the
Danelaw, can be
animations, man.
further split into several parts. There are 5 boroughs of Lincoln, Nottingham, Derby, Leicester and Stamford, which became known collectively as the 5 boroughs, the bigger towns in the area.
I've never
in
heard
the
of this shit
Midlands
before,
today.
man. That's why I'm not
To the
talking about it,
north,
because
York
this is
was the
so
big
interesting.
city that dominated the scene and would become incredibly important for the Norsemen there. And the area around here became known as the Kingdom of York. While in the southeast, in East Anglia, this became a new Norse kingdom of East Anglia ruled by Guthrum.
This makes
who
me
would
wanna
later,
play
after the
CK
Treaty
so
of
hard.
Wedmore, become known as Athelstan and converted to Christianity. The areas of the Danelaw, with their new influx of Danish, mostly Danish, and some Norwegian inhabitants, saw a great influx between the culture of the Anglo-Saxons who still lived in these regions, and a great intermingling occurred, with Anglo-Saxons marrying Danes and vice versa, and this created a new culture and a new people, who are often referred to as the Anglo-Scandinavians in these areas. Of course, as well,
A lot of
this
English
hugely
people must
affected
descend
the
from these
English
guys.
language, with many Old Norse words still being used in various forms in English today, like the word cast from casta, egg from egg, law from lagu, die from dea, leather from leather,
That's
knife
fucking...
from knifer,
yeah.
mistake
So
from
cool.
mistaka, and also in my own Northumbrian dialect, many of our words come from the Old Norse language, although they are very similar to Old English ones, so sometimes
Very
it's hard to
interesting.
tell. Words like ket, ben, yem, fell, and mara all come from Old Norse roots. Although in the case of ket, which today means something like sweets or sweet things, back then it used to mean
Old Norse and Anglo-Saxon English were close. What do you mean? Huh? When the Norse came to England, they must have learned their own... Huh? They must have learned their own English. What? Old Norse and Anglo-Saxon English were close enough they could somewhat understand each other. Like when I come from Norway to England, I speak my own language. Huh?
meat, so the words have changed meanings in some cases. Many of the Old Norse place names still exist throughout the Old Dane.
Common ancestry. That's what I was thinking the question was, but it was weirdly formed. So imagine this. This is how history is so crazy. A Viking comes to England, and because of history, they both their languages, Old Norse and Anglo-Saxon, are coming from Indo-Germanic languages. Meaning, even though these people never seen each other, they meet for the first time ever. They kind of have the same language. That's fucking whoa! What? That's so cool.
With
Because of all the
suffixes like
fucking
be, Thorpe,
movement
Borough,
of
Wick,
people and shit.
Ness, Kirk, all being examples of Norse place names that are found in abundance in the toponyms of northern and eastern England. Now, an interesting fact is that down the eastern side of England and the north, obviously thanks to the great heathen army, there were mainly
Zoe
people
Parr.
from Denmark, and thus the civilian population there was Danish. While
And
in
thank you,
western
Veld.
Britain, especially in northwestern Britain, so in places like the Lake District in Cumbria, thanks to the Norwegians going down the Scottish Isles and being in Ireland.
I have to say again and
many of
again,
these
I
people-
wish that one day you could put on a helmet and it brings you back in time and you can just observe. Like what must it look like of a great heathen army landing in England, man? That must be such a
would have
fucking
been from a
crazy
Norwegian
thing to
descent.
experience,
and so
man.
there is a slight difference between the toponyms in this region, but that's something.
And they're just, I live here now. If you have something against it, I will fucking
Now,
take your
as
head
the
off.
Danelaw was
Thank you,
intermingling
Sofada.
with the Anglo-Saxon population, the Danes there and from abroad were still trying to capture that last kingdom of Wessex, the only one holding out against the Danes in the other areas of England and going into Mercia as well. However, the Anglo-Saxons under Alfred and the men of Wessex constructed many new burhs, these fortified towns to hold them out, especially on riverheads. They also built, with that help to the Frisians who helped them out with this, a navy and built ships that were neither in the Frisian
This is
nor
like the downfall of the
style
Vikings.
as the Anglo-Saxon
Fuck, I want to play
chronicle
CK
puts
now.
it,
Goddamn.
to fight the Danes where they were most at home on the waves.
Shit.
And as well, a system of the fjord was set up, where half of the peasants would be running the land, while the other half would be in a
CK2 though, not
standing
CK3.
army, ready to fight off any Danish incursion. Now, soon the Anglo-Saxons actually found themselves on the front foot and started to have their dreams of recapturing their lost lands in the Danelaw. And it's actually the descendant of Alfred the Great, Edward the Elder, who managed to recapture the kingdom of East Anglia in 917 by deposing the Danish king there. In the following year, he and his sister Athelflaed of the Mercians were able to
The Vikings should have fucking eradicated them all. They should have just taken the whole thing to secure their foothold. If you just leave them like this, you will always get revenge, man.
At this point? Well, that's because the Norwegians from across the sea, who I already mentioned, in the Irish enclaves like Dublin, Limerick and Wexford, were pressing their own claim, trying to capture York, as was their dream. And so actually, while the Anglo-Saxons to the south were reconquering their old lands, the Vikings of York were busy fighting the Vikings of Dublin, who came and took the kingship of York during this time. Now actually, it's the King Edward the Elder who decided that instead of capturing York by conquest, he married his sister to the lord there, and so managed to gain sovereignty over it without shedding a single drop of blood. However, the Anglo-Saxons would have to fight for it, as in the year 937, when King Athelstan ruled the English, the Scottish made an alliance with the men of Strathclyde and with the Viking men.
In all of these stories, is there still Picts in Scotland, right? Who are they even? Like Vikings and Anglo-Saxons are fucking each other, and down in the north there's some fucking monkeys in the bushes, man, calling themselves Picts, man.
And thanks to this, they managed to hold on. But 2 years later, Athelstan was dead, and Olaf Guthrum was able to slip into England and recapture the kingdom anyway, holding on to the last bit of the Danelaw.
Just CK2, man. You're gonna have much more fun.
Now, it's not the end of the story when they die, and there were actually several
fucking
more
animations
Viking
are so good.
kings from Dublin who ruled in York. But soon afterwards, actually a man
No
from
one really
Norway,
knows who the Picts
I've
really
already
were.
covered in several videos, Eric Bloodaxe, Eiríkr, came from
Bloodaxe.
Norway and captured the kingdom of York for himself. He was driven out once, but he came back. But then, in 954, the Battle of Stainmore, the Northumbrians had had enough of his despotic regime, and they did away with him for good. Now, this isn't actually the end of the story, but I'd like to take this opportunity to look at some of the differences between the various Norse populations. Obviously, it's very hard to make a difference between countries because Denmark and Norway only really came about towards the end of the 10th century. But what's interesting is a linguistic divide. In Denmark and Sweden, the people there spoke a dialect or a version of Old Norse called Old East Norse. And thanks to this, in the Danelaw,
Everybody had
the people
different
from there
fucking dialects
would
all the
be
time,
speaking
dude.
a kind of
Just
Old
speak
East
normal.
Norse.
Just speak
While
English.
People from Norway who went out to places like Iceland and Greenland, as well as the Scottish Isles and Ireland.
You don't
and
have
also
CK2,
into
well then
areas
play
like
CK3.
Cumbria, like I mentioned.
I would suggest to
speaking
wait
more
until the rule designers out.
West Norse.
Dankeschön.
And that's why you have some
Danke.
differences in the toponyms. But really,
This morning I tried to be hardcore and I did a lot of weightlifting and I went too hard and now this entire area hurts and I can't even move.
these peoples would
Was? Shh. Okay, I have to be quiet, guys. Okay. So, let's keep watching.
most likely be able to understand each other without much of an issue. And there could also have been slight cultural differences between these groups, but unfortunately we don't know too much about that. But that's a little bit of diversity in the population that came to England during this time. Now as well, these people were completely mixing with the Anglo-Saxons, so you had a bit of a
think like
match between them. And really the
English,
Scandinavian
a
population
British man
to,
in 1800
become
must be a
the
mix of so much
population. It was
different
much
stuff,
harder
man.
to try and find a Danish person or an Anglo-Saxon
Got some
person
white stuff, though.
within the areas of the Danelaw, as initially the Danes had had longer hair, they'd been uncouth, or although they had apparently been much better groomed than the Anglo-Saxon men, which is why they got the girl at the end of the day. But really, these Anglo-Scandinavians,
you hear that, man? You
became
gotta take a
mixed
shower to
culture
get
as
the girl, okay?
Vikings, they started to convert to Christendom as well, and actually had oftentimes a better relationship with the church than the original Northumbrian or East Anglian rulers had had, and so they got on very well with the
Show
bishops
food
and
is
the
just
monks,
from yesterday.
most of the
Chili
time.
con carne
And this
with
very
rice.
interesting culture developed in these areas. Now as well, because of this, because
Okay,
they
we're
were
gonna watch the other part tomorrow. Never. That was enough. I learned a lot. Let's play her format. Come on, let's play her format. I can't ADHD and shit. Let's get the child achievement, which is